Aliens learned about February 14th. Part 1. Getting to know Earth. On the planet Jonx 23, the aliens had been observing Earth for a long time. They were a rather eccentric race, with pointed ears, silvery skin, and deep violet eyes. They were scientists, exploring space and sending probes to different planets to gather data and improve their understanding of the universe. But among all the observations they made of the Earth, one event caught their special attention: February 14th. Initially, they didn't realize what day it was at all, but they began to notice strange things happening on Earth on that day. First, people were actively carrying huge bouquets of flowers and something bright red in the streets. Second, they were saying cryptic phrases like, "Happy Valentine's Day," and "I love you like no one else in the world." These phrases were heard everywhere, on the streets, in cafes, in parks, in stores, and even on the news. The aliens were interested. They decided to send their best spy, named Zerg, to Earth to find out more about what it was about this holiday that was causing all the people on the planet to behave so strangely. Zerg was the perfect candidate for this mission. He was fast, intelligent, and couldn't help but be fascinated by the study of human nature. However, he himself considered humans to be rather useless creatures. All he knew about Earth was reduced to what he had gathered from his observations of numerous probes. Part 2. Diving into human customs. Zerg descended to Earth and took the form of a human being, a middle-aged man with dark hair and a short beard. He chose one of Earth's major capitals and first went to the local shopping center. Their people were wandering around buying something strange, not at all like the usual goods they buy every day. A young guy in a suit walked into the store, picked out a huge bouquet of roses and a gift box of chocolates. He walked up to each person in line and quickly said phrases like, "Happy Valentine's Day," handed over the gift, and then watched with delight at the reaction of the person he was giving it all to. Zerg was puzzled. It was completely incomprehensible to him what these gifts were, and why they were so important. In his native civilization, exchanging gifts was not something important. There was only the exchange of knowledge. The more valuable the data you could pass on, the more respectable you became in the eyes of society. As he approached one of the stores, he saw a woman standing near a display case of rings. She scrutinized each one, then looked at the display case several times with a serious expression on her face. Zerg couldn't understand why such a thing as a ring caused her so much emotion. He quickly consulted a local vendor and learned that people buy rings as a sign of love, especially on this day. "Love?" Zerg whispered in surprise. "Is that some kind of special type of energy?" The salesman looked at Zerg with interest and said, No, love isn't energy. It's just a feeling where you want to be with someone forever." Zerg was even more puzzled. "What does being with someone forever mean? Is that a substitute for scientific knowledge?" he pondered. However, his task was simple: gather the information and return home. Part 3. Alien mistakes. Looking for more information, Zerg looked into a cafe where several couples were sitting. He noticed that each couple was exchanging strange words and looks. Both the men and women were taking turns telling each other how much they appreciated each other. The alien decided that this seemed to be some kind of interpersonal energy exchange. One guy in a coffee shop, seeing his look, came over and said, "Hey, don't you know what's going on here?" Zerg was stunned by the question and thought it might be a test. He didn't reveal his alien origin and replied, "This is February 14th, the day when people show each other their affection. We are here to make this day special." The guy looked at Zerg in surprise, but then realized that the guy was probably not from around here and shrugged his shoulders. This only reinforced Zerg's point that Earthlings don't understand how love energy works at all. Zerg decided that it was necessary to infiltrate this love society. He set about collecting his gifts. In his mind, it was something akin to transferring valuable data. He took some galactic documents that contained the latest discoveries of his scientific expedition and began to distribute them to the humans, thinking it was a necessary gift. When he handed his first gift to a woman in a store, she examined it carefully and, raising an eyebrow, said, "This is a report on star systems? Are you out of your mind? Where are my flowers and chocolates?" Zurg didn't know what to say. The gift was really useful, but for some reason it didn't get the reaction it needed. The woman got upset and moved on, and Zurg began to wonder, maybe he had misunderstood something. Part 4. Understanding February 14th. The next day, Zurg decided to study the customs of the Earthlings in more detail. He tried more and more to understand what love was. Why do people exchange flowers, cards, rings, and chocolates so actively? Why was it so important? He continued his observations. He saw people kissing, hugging, exchanging long looks, and sometimes singing songs to each other. In some places, such as restaurants, people were sitting at tables, chatting and sharing wine and sweets with each other. Zurg realized that love wasn't just an exchange of data. It's something much more complex. It was an emotional connection that could not be conveyed through numbers and reports. Love was the very real energy that connected people. Part 5. Alien Inspiration. When the next February 14th came, Zurg returned to his home planet, Jonks 23, with a new perspective on Earth and its customs. He told his colleagues what February 14th was all about. He explained that love is not just an emotion, but a way for people to connect, creating a unique energy that strengthens relationships. Inspired by his stories, the aliens decided that they should have their own celebration of love. They began to design their own gifts that combined both science and emotion. At first, they started giving each other science reports with expressions of gratitude and appreciation. But then, they realized they wanted to give something more human. Just as Earthlings exchanged flowers and chocolates, the aliens began to exchange unusual rocks and stars. But most importantly, they began to exchange attention and words of gratitude. And so, the aliens of Jonks 23 eventually created their own day of love inspired by February 14th. But now they knew that the real value was not in giving data, but in giving warmth and attention to other beings. Part 6. Jonks 23 Celebration. The celebration on Jonks 23 was unique, and not just because it was inspired by Earth. The aliens, under Zurg's careful guidance, had begun to gradually integrate human traditions into their customs. However, their approach to love and mutual relationships was somewhat unconventional. First, instead of the usual flowers, they began to give each other living crystals that emitted light upon contact. These crystals symbolized the mutual respect and light between the beings that they passed on to each other. They believed that such a gift was much more valuable and long-lasting than flowers. Second, since the aliens were not in the habit of hugging and kissing each other, they invented a special way of hugging. Instead of the usual physical contact, they used their telepathic abilities to transmit packets of emotions to each other. When the two aliens met, they began to exchange feelings, creating a special aura in which both felt warmer and more connected to each other. However, the greatest difficulties arose with how to express love with words. The aliens were not used to such concepts as wishes or money for dates. For them, only knowledge and facts have always been important. So instead of saying trite phrases like on Earth, they started exchanging essays written for each other. These essays detailed what each of them valued in the other being, from scientific discoveries to impressions from their joint research. And so, on the first day of the Love Fest on Jonks 23, Zurg decided to give his people a presentation. He invited everyone to the central hall, where everyone could present a gift a scientific paper, or an essay on what love meant to them. It was a little strange at first. When one of the aliens named Tugo began reading his essay on the value of stargazing together and the research accomplishments of their society, the room filled with tense silence. The humans, or more accurately, the aliens, didn't know how to react. It was so far removed from the human concept of romance. But then one of the scientists named Orko presented his gift. It was a letter in which he expressed his gratitude to his partner for their years of research together, and how she had helped him look at their science projects from a different angle. Orko even added lines about how her laughter made him more patient and relaxed. This was something completely new to John's 23. Zurg was shocked. He realized that love wasn't always expressed in words or gifts. It was more than that. He felt that something important had changed in his perception of this energy. He knew that his world and Earth were very different, but there was still something they had in common, a desire for understanding and support. Part 7. Earth and John's 23. The merging of traditions. But despite the aliens' best efforts, they couldn't shake the strange feeling that February 14th, as it is celebrated on Earth, still had something important they were missing. Despite their scientific advances and new gifts, they still felt that perhaps they had fallen short of the sincerity that was the tradition of Earth. It was for this reason that Zurg decided it was time to visit Earth again. He traveled to Earth with a small group of scientists to see firsthand how the people celebrated the day. This time, he didn't come as an alien spy, but as a scientist ready to embrace new knowledge. He took with him some new ideas and gadgets to improve his understanding of how Earthlings express their feelings. When Zurg found himself back in the cafe where he had previously watched the couples, he was shocked. Not only were people exchanging gifts, but they were actually talking to each other, laughing, genuinely sharing their experiences. There was something very alive and organic about it. It was as if every look, every gesture, every warm moment was part of something meaningful that was not expressed in reports or scientific research, but simply in people. Zurg approached one of the men who sat with the woman at the table and asked, "Why do you people spend the day the way you do?" The man looked at Zurg and, smiling, replied, "We spend it this way because it is a day where we can remind each other how much we appreciate each other. It's not about gifts. It's about connection." Those words were a revelation to Zurg. He realized that the real meaning of February 14th, as Earthlings understood it, was about simplicity. It wasn't about perfect gifts, or grandiose scientific discoveries, or even the wonders of the universe. It was something much simpler: human connection. Part 8. Return to John's 23. Back on John's 23, Zurg was full of new ideas. He decided that his people needed to rethink their ideas about holidays and gifts. The aliens might give crystals and reports, but most importantly, it would be more than just an exchange of information. It will be an exchange of warmth, attention, and mutual understanding. The new holiday on John's 23 had become much more human. The aliens began to express their feelings more actively, albeit through their own forms, such as telepathic embraces and emotions transmitted through crystals. But now on their world, love was an important part of their society. It was not measured by scientific facts, but was part of their daily lives. So eventually, John's 23 acquired their own Day of Love, which was inspired by Earth, but became a reflection of the unique nature of their civilization. Part 9. Conclusion: Worlds and Connections. Zurg, sitting on the edge of the starry ocean of his home planet, looked out over the vast expanse of the universe and pondered. He realized that more and more people, including his people, were finding common ground and understanding despite their differences. And that was important. He remembered the Earth, remembered how it was full of emotion, laughter, and love. And though their worlds were far apart, they had found something in common. And now Zert knew that no matter what happens in this universe, there is always a way to understand each other. You just have to truly want it. And maybe one day he and Earth would be even more closely connected, not only through reports and scientific achievements, but also through the mutual warm feelings that bind all living things in this vast cosmos.